over to the CSM position about 5 years ago. So currently I'm working with customers in North America, helping them get set up with LT, the onboarding process, retention, things like that. Today we're going to be going over 5 tips that I'm going to share with you on how to increase student engagement in LT. So we're going to kind of go through the workflows on how to set them up, some of the student experience, things like that. The presentation will last around 30 minutes, give or take a few minutes there, and then we'll end with a 15-minute Q&A session at the end. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to go ahead and put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen there. We have some panelists that will help answer the questions during the presentation, and then any that have not yet been answered, I'll go ahead and answer live if we have time for them. We are also going to be recording this, so I will send this off to you guys as well after either later today or next week, so you can kind of refer back to it. So the 5 tips I'm going to go over to increase student engagement in LT. The first one's going to be how to provide active learning activities. So I'm going to show you how to use the example data we have for the data panels and the analysis tools, and then kind of go through some of the question types that we have for your students. I'm going to go through how to provide timely and useful feedback for students. So we'll go through the Cura grading process, how you can give point values and give the students feedback for the questions that they've answered. We're also going to kind of go through how to increase instructor presence. So I'm going to show you how you can actually import some video clips if you are kind of doing a flipped classroom type course. So we'll kind of go through how to do some authoring there. We'll also go through how to provide self-assessment opportunities. So the different question assessment types that we have for the different interactive questions. And then finally, just a quick tutorial on how to make learning social and promote appropriate social media engagement. So within LT, you are able to actually have the students log in together as a group, even though they're going to be virtual and being on their own computer at home. So to get started here, for that first tip, how to provide active learning activities, I'm actually logged in here as a student. So that's the screen that you should be seeing here. And I'm going to go ahead and open up this lesson as if I were a student. I'll just go into preview mode here. And right now, I'm just going to kind of show you the different question types that we have and how it can be interactive for your students. So let me go on to this next page here. We have multiple different interactive features and interactive questions. So one of our question types is going to be labeling. We always give the students the option if you want to check their answer, so they can kind of do a self-assessment type question. We also have multiple choice. You can allow your students to have multiple attempts, for example. So you'll see I can answer as many times as I need. Another question type is going to be categories. So you'll notice we have a bunch of different types of questions for your students to be interacting with throughout the lesson. One of the most important features I think that's nice for your students, we're going to go ahead and show them multiple different media types. So the students can interact with videos, they'll have different images, the questions that we went over before. But I think the most valuable, important tool that we have is going to be the example data and data analysis here. So originally, we would allow your students to be able to use this equipment at home and be able to record data themselves and then do the analysis themselves. Since a lot of our classes now are virtual, we do provide your students with this example data as if they were recording themselves. They can actually read through the procedure, what they would be doing if they were using the equipment. But if you provide them with the example data, they can go onto the analysis page and use the analysis tools that we have. So you'll see here we have a region selector. The data that we've selected shows up in these value panels down here. We have a point selector as well. The students can zoom in and zoom out on the data. So there's different ways they can view it. They can also scale the data in different ways as well. A really nice analysis feature that we have is this auto scale. So if a student accidentally makes the data go out of range here, they can always auto scale it back. The students can then take the data that they're pulling from the table or I'm sorry, from the data panel and put it into the table. And I'm also able to type the data values into the tables as well. For example, I'll go ahead and type in my ASUNA there, and then fill out the tables and the graphs. So kind of a brief overview of what we went through. The students, in order to make it a really active learning activity, they can go through those different question types, interact with the data, and do the data analysis. I'm going to go back to the home page here, and let's see if my internet will pop up. And I want to show you how you can make this example data available for your students. So I'm in my course here, and I'm under the admin view. So I'm going to go down here to settings at the very bottom. I'm going to scroll all the way down to example data settings. And you're going to want to make sure this is on by default if your classes are all going to be virtual. That way, when the students show up to that data panel, to do the analysis, that example data will show up. If in the future you're ever using the Power Lab and equipment with LT, you can make it either on with an access code, or you can turn the example data completely off. Our next tip was how to provide timely and useful feedback for students. So in order to show you a way how to do this in LT, I'm going to go into my own individual course here that I created. I'm going to go to student work. Any of the lessons that I have published or made available for my students are going to show up under student work here. So I can then navigate to the lesson I want to provide feedback for. So I'm going to click on this example lesson, atomic structure, and I'm going to go down to grading. In the beginning, this would originally show up here as grade lesson. I've revised this in the past, but so this is, I'm just going to go ahead and hit grade revision here. And this is going to take me to a grading table where you guys can actually grade the students and provide feedback for them. So a list of students that have completed the lab will be over here on the left, and I will also show you an example of multiple students. And each one of these question or boxes here is a question the student was asked. So for example, if I click on this box here, it takes me to the question. I can see the student's answer. We'll always have the student help model answer. I can then give the students any point values and feedback that I want them to see. I'll navigate back out to the grading table here. This top row is going to be the maximum point value for the question below it. By default, we do not provide point values, but you can assign point values to each one of the questions if you'd like. These yellow questions here are actually automatically graded questions. So you'll notice if I click on, for example, this question here, it'll take me to that question. This is labeling here. I provided or gave this question 4 points. So LT will actually automatically grade that question for your students. There are a couple grading options you can do as well. You can hide the student names. You'll notice Andrea over here turns into student 1. So it's a good way to be able to grade without doing a bias or with being anonymous there. You can hide auto-graded questions. So you'll notice those yellow questions go away. Now that you as the grader can focus on the manually graded questions that you have to do. The auto-graded questions are going to be multiple choice, drag and drop, labeling, and categories. You can also show questions that have not been set up for grading. So if you did not set a point value to the question, you can still set up go ahead and view the question. If there's no point value assigned, you can still give them feedback. What this looks like with multiple students, and I just want to quickly show you so we can see how to grade multiple students. When you first open up a lesson, any manually graded questions that have not had a point value assigned yet will have these little dots in them. So you can go ahead and just start on that first student in the top right left corner. I'm on Layla's questions, for example. I can go question 1 all the way until I'm finished that way. Or I can stick on question 3 and grade question 3 for every student. So our main tip on how to provide timely and useful feedback for students, this cure grading allows you to go in and start grading the students as soon as they've completed. But what this looks like for the student, as soon as you go in and grade them, they can go to their home page here. Any lesson that they've committed will have this little check mark. They will be able to open up that lesson. It'll tell them if it's still being graded or if you have completed the grading. But they can then navigate through that lesson. They'll see the point values that they were given. And if you have provided feedback, they'll be able to click on these little comment boxes here and see the feedback that you've given them from you or from the grader. Okay. The next tip was how to increase instructor presence. So a really common practice lately is going to be the flipped classrooms. So I wanted to show you one way you can actually insert videos into our lessons, maybe of you as the instructor or a TA or something along those lines. So when I'm in admin view, I'm going to want to go first into editing mode. So the way I do that, I click on my course. I'm going to go into lessons and I'm going to want to open up the lesson that I'm going to edit. So maybe it's my airflow lab. I'll hit open. And as soon as I open that up, it's going to take me into preview mode. When I'm in preview mode, I can basically go through the lesson as if I were a student. So you'll see the questions are showing up here. But when I'm ready to edit, I'm going to want to click on this editing button in the bottom corner. This little editing quill here. And that's going to take me into editing mode. The way our lessons are set up are with different panels on each page. So for example, this is a text panel. We have question panels. If I go back, for example, there are also image panels. We can drag and drop these panels across the page if we want to. Wherever that blue line is where that panel will end up. If I go to the bottom here under panels, you'll notice a bunch of different question panels as well as basic panels that we provide. So here's some of our basic ones. We have a bunch of different question panels, multimedia, and then sampling. I'm going to go back to multimedia and click on this video panel here. So if I wanted to add a video of me as an instructor, maybe it's my lecture or one of our TAs, I would just pick and drag and drop that onto the page. When I'm ready to add the video, I will double click on that panel. I'm going to hit add video. I can then navigate to where my video is on my desktop here. So I'll go ahead and I have a video saved to my desktop. And you'll notice now that video shows up here. If I click done and preview, I can go ahead and play that video and this is what the students will see. So this could be, for example, an image, or I'm sorry, a video of you doing the lecture. If you want to add an image on top of your video, you can double click there. We'll hit add poster. Want to go ahead and find the image you're going to add. And now you'll notice when we go to preview mode, that video, that image shows up on top of the video there. So again, going back to our tip on how to increase instructor presence, a really nice way for you to do that is to be able to put these videos into LT of you lecturing, any TAs, something that you want to kind of show the students personally. My next tip is going to be how to provide self-assessment opportunities. So there are multiple types of questions and question assessment we have in LT. So I'm just going to move forward onto one of our question panels here. If I go into preview mode, by default, we set our questions to be instant feedback with no point values assigned. It also allows your students to try as many times as they want. So for example, I answer this question that is if I were a student, and I'm allowing that student to check their answer. They can try as many times as they want until they get it correct. So this is one way they can kind of assess themselves. I'm going to go exit preview and back into editing mode and show you the other types of assessment. The one type is going to be here. Oh, sorry about that. The one type is actually going to be no assessment. So you'll notice edit answer went away there. If there's no assessment, There's basically no right or wrong answer. So this might be a question asking the students what were some topics they struggled with throughout the lesson, or something along those lines, where the students aren't necessarily going to be right or wrong. The next is going to be instant feedback. Instant feedback is what we just saw previously. So the students can answer however many times they want and be able to check their answer. So they get that instant feedback. The third, or excuse me, let me go back here. With instant feedback, you can actually edit and make it so they can only try one attempt. So now you'll notice they can assess themselves, get that feedback, but I have to actually go in and commit my answer. So I get that feedback from if I'm right or wrong. However, now it's grayed out and I can't answer it again. The third type is going to be graded. So with graded, there's actually not going to be any feedback for the students until the grader goes in and gives them a grade. So you'll notice now, I'm sorry, let me go back here. Before I show you in preview mode, I can actually edit this answer and change the point value if I want to change the amount of points it's worth. Hit OK, done. Now when I go into preview as a student, I can answer, but you'll notice that check answer button is no longer there. The students are not going to get the feedback until the grader goes in and grades them. The fourth type of assessment is going to be instant and graded. With instant and graded, this is almost like instant feedback and graded kind of combined. So you'll notice we still have those point values assigned there. If I edit answer, I can again go back in and change point values if I want to. And then I can also allow multiple attempts or just one. So if I click OK and done, I can then go into preview, answer the question. I get that instant feedback showing up here again. And now I also have a point value assigned. Finally, under that instant and graded, you can also uncheck multiple attempts. So now if I go hit OK here and done, the students can answer, check their answer. However, now they must commit it. They'll get that feedback whether they're right or wrong, but now it's grayed out, so they can't necessarily go in and try it again. So those are the four types of question assessment. And what we were going back for that tip was going to be how to provide the self-assessment opportunities for your students. You can do this for any of the question types. So whether it's a manually graded question or automatically graded question, you can change the different type of a question assessment as well. My last tip was how to make learning social and promote appropriate social media engagement. So I'm actually going to log out onto our home page here. And this is kind of a quick tip. It is a little bit difficult to show, but I do want to kind of explain it. Within LT in our content, we've provided both individual and group lessons. So our individual lessons consist of the pre-lab or some of the previous tutorials. And then we have group lessons, which were originally made to be worked on together when they're actually doing recording in the lab. Since most of our classes right now are virtual, we do allow your students to be able to log in as a group, even though they're going to be on different desktops. So they're going to want to use this group login tab here. You're going to want to assign a group of students, provide them with a Zoom link, and then assign a group leader. The group leader is going to go ahead, they're going to all open up Zoom. The group leader can then share their screen, and they will then be the first one to put in their credentials here and add to group. The group leader is going to then want to share the remote control with the next student so they can put in their email and password, add themselves to the group. Oh, I put in my same one there. Anyway, the students would add in their own email and password, add themselves to the group. They would share with the next student until all of the group members are then added in. They can then log in together as a group. Any lessons that have been made to be worked on as a group will show up so the students can actually go in and answer the questions together, kind of discuss the lesson and go through that way. So again, my 5 tips right now on how to increase the student engagement in LT is going to be how to provide active learning activities. So those are the different question types, the data analysis, and how to set up that example data. Tip 2 was providing timely and useful feedback for students. So we went through that grading table, how you can assign point values, as well as give feedback to the students. Third tip was increasing instructor presence. So we talked about one way you could do this is putting in videos of you lectures or any other videos the TAs want to share. The 4th tip was providing self-assessment opportunities. So we went through the 4 different types of question assessment, which was the no assessment, instant feedback, graded, and then instant and graded. And then the 5th tip was how to make learning social and promote appropriate media engagement. So that was how we discussed how the students can actually log in together as a group, even though they're going to be virtual and on their own desktops. What's really nice about LT is it's completely customizable so that you can do many different ways on how to go through or go about these tips. But these were the top 5 that I wanted to share with you guys today. So we are a little bit early. Usually this is about a half an hour. So if there's any questions, I'll go ahead and look in the Q&A now. I'm sure our panelists were able to kind of keep up with it, but it looks like there aren't any open questions as of yet. I'll go ahead and go through some of our frequently asked common questions here on other workflows that that you'll want to go through when setting up your courses here. So one thing that's going to be important when setting up your course is going to be publishing your lessons. So all of your content in your course is going to be housed under lessons and modules. You import the content from our website from this import LT content button here. All of our collections will be listed over there on the left. And then you can pick and choose the modules that you want on the right there. So as soon as you import whatever lessons you decide to do, they're going to show up over here under lessons and modules. The way our content is created is there are multiple lessons within an individual module. So if I click on modules, for example, I have an airflow module here with 4 lessons within it. And I see there's a couple questions in the Q&A. So as soon as I go through this publishing here, I'll go ahead and address those. When I'm ready to customize and publish my module, I want to go ahead to modules. I'll pick the module I want to publish. Before publishing, I can actually edit this module. So I can take lessons out if I want to. I can add lessons back in. I can also make it so the students have to complete the lessons in order. As soon as I'm finished, I can go ahead and hit finish editing, publish. I can either make this module available right away, which will make both of the pre-lab and the lab lessons available, or I can go in and actually do and set the availability. This first one, I'll just go ahead and hit make available now. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and hit publish here. I'm going to go now down into the student view button on the bottom right corner. You'll notice I just went in and published this airflow module. This is now available for my students. When I click on that module, I now have the pre-lab prep lesson available. And then following that is going to be the airflow lab. You'll notice this little lock here tells me that the student has to start and finish that pre-lab prep before they can actually open up and start the lab. I want to show that one more time just to show how you can actually do these setting the availability. So I'm going to go back into modules now. You'll now see under my airflow module, I have this book to the right of it. That's telling me that this has been published for the students. So maybe next week's going to be my ANS here. I'm going to go ahead and edit this. Maybe I don't want these 2 lessons in there. I'll hit finish editing. I can then publish. Rather than making this available right away, I'm actually going to go in and set the availability. So when I set availability, it's going to redirect me to this availability page. It tells me I'm on my ANS published module card. And it tells me with this little warning here that these lessons have not yet had availability set. Keep in mind that you have to set availability for every lesson, not necessarily an entire module if you're setting a day and a time. So if I click on pre-lab here, I'm now on the A&S pre-lab prep card. I can click availability. I can then go in and set the availability, so you can choose the day and time you want it to be made available. You can also add a commit time to the lesson. So if I wanted, a commit time is basically like a due date. Maybe I make the lesson available Monday at 8 a.m. and it has to be completed Friday at 5 p.m. I can actually go in and put a day and a time that it will be automatically committed for your students. You'll notice now on this pre-lab prep card that warning gate is now no longer there. It tells me that it has been made available. However, on the module card, I still have this warning sign here telling me that one of the lessons has not yet had availability set. So I can then go into that lab lesson here, go into availability, set availability, and maybe I don't want the actual lab to show up until this Friday. That sign's now no longer there. It tells me that it's going to be available in 2 days. And now our module has been made available to all of our students. So again, for the third time, I'm going to go into student view. That A&S module is showing up on my student homepage. You'll notice here that that first lesson, the pre-lab, shows up because I made it available right away. And it also has the due date. It tells the students when it's going to be automatically committed. The lab is not showing up here, the lab lesson, because that's not going to be made available until Friday at the time and date that I set. So if you have any questions on publishing or anything like that, please feel free to put them in the Q&A as well. Another common question that we have is how to invite the students into LT. So when I'm under my course here, inviting the students is going to be under the Student Accounts tab. There's 2 ways that you can actually invite students. You can import an entire list of students where you can just put their emails, first and last names, and I'll go ahead and show you an example of this CSV file that you can import. 1 second here. And this is actually a CSV file that we can send to you guys as well. You can use it to import the students. So you'll want to put in the students' emails in this first column, first and last name. You don't necessarily need their student ID or their section. If you don't include those, go ahead and just leave these columns there, as this is the format LT will recognize. As soon as you have the CSV file filled out, you can then go into Student Accounts, import, go ahead and browse, find that CSV file, and you can import all of the students at once. Once you do this, it's going to look similar to, I'm under Student Accounts here, all of your students will then be listed over here. When you first import them, it's going to ask them if you want, or it's going to ask you if you want to automatically invite the students. So at the time when you're importing them, you can also invite them immediately. That will send your students an invitation from LT, asking them to accept that invitation, where they can then accept it. They'll be redirected to the login page where they can create their password and use their email as their username. If you choose to not invite them right away after importing, you can then go back to Student Accounts, select all of those students, go to this cogwheel drop-down menu here, and send the invites all at once. You may get a couple students saying they never got the invitation. If that's the case, go ahead and go again under Student Accounts. You can actually filter out who is active or pending. Active means they have accepted the invitation and created their account. Pending means they have not yet accepted the invitation. So you can actually filter out to pending, find the student that has not yet created their account, and all you have to do is resend their invitation. This is nice because you don't have to actually go in and re-enter all of their information. If a student drops the class maybe after you've imported them, you'll just want to find that student. You can go ahead and delete them. If a student adds at a later date, you can use this drop-down menu here and actually invite an individual student. So you'll just want to put in their email. Again, you don't need their student ID, first, last name. If there is a section, you can put them in their section and then add. I do like to suggest letting your students know if they or when they get that invitation to make sure and accept their own invite. We've had a couple students maybe accidentally delete it or not get it. First, have them check their spam or junk folder, but make sure that they're accepting their own invitation because that's going to be associated with their email and therefore their grades and their work. Okay. I'm going to go back into student work here. We briefly went over how to go through the grading, the Cura grading, but a nice feature as well for your students to manage their progress is going to be, I'm going to go to atomic structure, student progress, and I can actually see where the students are within the lesson, as well as go in and view their student work. So I can actually filter out where the students are under the lesson I'm looking at here. So I can see who has not yet started. You can actually go in and grab all of those students' emails. Maybe I want to email those students and ask, make sure they have access, ask what's going on, why they haven't started yet. I can also filter out who is in progress or who has committed. If they're in progress or have committed, you can actually go and click on one of those students and go in and view their student work. So basically you're opening up a lesson, their lesson as if as an admin view. This is not where you're going to be grading or giving them feedback, but it does allow you to kind of see the answers to the questions, any data analysis that they're doing. If they had been recording in lab, it also allows you to see the data that they've recorded. So it kind of gives you a little sneak peek. You can also grant an extension as well as reset the progress for your students. So granting an extension will basically open up that lesson for them. If they've already committed, all of their previous work will still be there, but they can go in and change any of the answers, finish the data analysis, anything like that. You can also reset the progress for LT, or for the lesson, excuse me. Resetting the progress for that lesson is going to get rid of all of their previous work, so they will have to start completely over for that lesson. If the progress status is filtered out to all students, you have the option to reset all of the progress for that lesson for all of the students. I know that is kind of a dangerous button. Don't worry if you accidentally click that, you will have a pop-up that asks, are you sure you want to do this? This is commonly used at the end of the semester, for example, if you want your students to be able to do these lessons again and kind of practice them for studying purposes. Okay, I have a question here from Dawn. It says, can you please confirm what email address the invitations to students will come from, so we can tell them what to watch out for? So this is going to be coming from LT. So when in their subject box, it's going to be an invitation from LT. We have a couple documents you can actually send to your students where it'll give them kind of a warning or an idea of what to expect when they get that invitation. I hope that was helpful, Dawn. Okay. We also have a question on how to integrate LT into an LMS or a Canvas. So that is kind of a lengthy process. The way, yeah, I guess how to answer this quickly. If you do integrate LT, oh, thank you, Marcus. I just saw that. The email comes from noreply@curacloud.com. That's what the email is going to be for your students when they get the invitation. Back to the LMS. You're going to want to work with your main LMS IT to kind of get it set up and integrated. But when it is set up, you'll be able to create courses and kind of invite the students from your LMS. It'll integrate with LT. The grades will also be automatically synced. There are also a couple ways you can put in your lessons into your LMS so your students can access them directly. The way you'd want to do this is under student work here. You would go to the lesson you want to integrate into your LMS. And you can actually go into this drop-down menu here and get link. This link is what you can actually put in Canvas and tell your students for whatever day it's going to be, they can actually click on this link. It will redirect them to that exact lesson where they can open that up and begin that lesson. So this is kind of just skipping the whole logging in from loginlt.com, navigating to the lesson they'd be doing that week and then opening it up that way. Sorry if that was a little confusing. There are a couple of videos as well on our website that explains a little bit more on how to do the integration. Okay. Another common question that we have, oh, I'm going to go back here. We had another question to see if this also integrates with Blackboard. It's very similar to Canvas. Yes, you can integrate it with Blackboard as well. So I'm going to go back. Another common question that we have is the instance administration and the different roles in LT. So I'm going to go to instance administration and go over some of the administrator and other roles that we have. Under administrators, there are two main types of administrators that are in LT. The first is going to be an instance administrator. So each institution is going to have their own LT instance. Or basically their LT account. Any instructors that are going to be using LT will be using this same instance. An instance administrator is going to have complete control over that instance. So they'll be able to see every course. They're able to invite other instance administrators. They can also invite other course administrators. So basically they have pretty much every privilege within your LT instance. A course administrator is going to have only control over their individual course. So they'll be able to log in, create their own course, and manage it the way they want to, but they're not going to be able to see any of the other courses that instructors have created. There are also other roles within LT. So this is kind of messy, I apologize, but the three main roles you're going to have is an author, a grader, and a deputy course admin. These are going to be specific to an individual course. So an author, you can actually invite a staff member as an author, which will allow them to only be able to edit the lessons and modules. You can invite a member as a grader. So this staff member will only be able to help you grade the lessons as well as see their student progress. You can invite a staff member as a deputy course admin. So they will be able to then have permissions to do everything within your course to help manage. They won't be able to create their own course, but they can help you manage the rest of the settings. You can also create your own role here. So that's what these were down here. If you do create your own role, you can actually pick and choose the permissions you want that staff member to have. A common one that I have seen in the past is managing the student accounts and grading the lessons for ATA. So they can help you import the students, they can help you grade and give feedback, but they're not going to be able to change any of the content that you've created or edit any of the course settings. The way you would invite a staff member, so I'm going to go exit the administration here. You would be underneath your course as soon as it loads up. So I'm going to go back to my course here. We'd go down to staff accounts, invite. You would then put in your email or the staff member's email, first and last name, and choose which role you want them to have. If you created a custom role, it will automatically show up down here for you to choose. You would then hit send and they would get that same invitation asking them to confirm. They'll create their account and be able to have access to that course. If they're invited as an author, they're only going to see this lessons and modules tabs here because they're only able to author within that course. A grader is only going to be able to see the student work. A deputy course admin will see all of these tabs here. And then whatever custom role you created is what they will see over here on the right, or the left-hand side here. So that goes over kind of the different roles in LT, the course administrator as well as instance administrator. That's for the entire instance. and then the different roles you can have per individual course. Okay. One other thing I do want to show in real quickly. So I went through the CURE grading and how the students, or how you can go in and give them feedback and point values. The other type of grading that you can do is allow your students to actually generate a PDF at the end of their report. They can then upload this into your LMS if you'd like, or email it to you or hand it in. So let me go ahead and show you an example of what this PDF will look like here. Give me 1 second, sorry. Okay. So at the end of the report, you can allow, or at the end of the lesson, you can allow your students to generate a PDF of their lesson. So this will pull over all of the questions that they had been asked. You can make it so the tables are pulled over, any graphs. You can also make it so a snapshot of the data analysis and data panel is showing up on the report as well. If you want to allow your students to have that PDF report and turn it to you, or maybe upload it into your LMS, under your course, you'll want to go into settings. We'll want to scroll down to lesson report settings. And you'll want to download this, or I'm sorry, you'll want to make sure this check box is here so the students can download a PDF of their report. You can make it, you don't have to choose between one or the other for either the PDF or the CURE grading. CURE grading will always be enabled for you guys. And then you guys have the option if you want your students to be able to download a PDF. Okay. So I'm going to, there is one question here. We have, which format does do the videos need to be in LT? I apologize that I don't know all of the formats. I do know one is going to be an MP4 that they can use. What I can do, however, Marcus, is follow up with you and show, follow up with you and provide you with a list of all of the different formats that are needed or accepted in LT, excuse me. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful for everybody. I hope this was a great series for all of you guys and everything's going well for you. Yeah, please let us know if you have any questions. This is going to be recorded, so we will send this out to you guys as well. But yeah, it's great working with you guys, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Ari, I think Arvo has raised his hand. Arvo, I've asked you to unmute, so you should be able to talk and ask your question. All right, no worries.
I'm sorry, I pressed the hand raise accidentally, sorry.
That's all right.
Are there any other questions or?
No, I don't think so. All right, thanks everyone. We'll be ending the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone so much. We'll talk with you soon.